Hi, my friends.
Hi, guys.
Hi, good night.
How are you guys?
Mm.
Fine.
Good.
Okay.
Great. Guys, first of all, before we start, I want to clarify here that I have been watching a couple of previous studies and I saw that my voice was failing a little bit. I am having a couple of internet troubles lately. I was even talking to Norah about this. I don't know what is happening here. We're having a couple of rainy days. I'm gonna try to maybe talk a little slow sometimes, and when I see that they are frozen to me, I'm gonna try to speak even lower so it doesn't happen again. I have been watching a couple of studies from Wednesday and from Saturday, and I have been seeing that my voice is cutting a little. I'm so sorry. We're here today to study and that, just to clarify again, that is why my camera is closed, so my voice can sound more clear and my internet my internet connection can cooperate better. So we're here to start this amazing fourth day of study about this book, Workers of Eternal Life. We're very happy, we're almost finishing the book. One more book. So we have loads of interesting things to talk about today from chapter 13 on. But before we start, as usual, Nora will bring us some prayer. We're going to get more focused, calm down, and then we can get going. Okay?
All right, here we go. Let us close our eyes and tune into this beautiful vibration, thanking the spirits and God, Mother Mary, and all for the resources, for the health, and the blessings to be here tonight on demand. We ask for enlightenment, for focus, in that tonight's message is a message of love and hope as we continue to radiate love into this world for more peace. Let us say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. And with that, we kindly ask divine gift a beginning, and so be it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, dear. So we're on chapter 13. And as we've seen at the beginning of this book, we saw that this book deals precisely with the task carried out by Andrea Louise and other companions in the crust, which consisted of helping in the disincarnation of some brothers and sisters. We saw that this is what this book talks about. And this chapter 13 is the first case of a proper discarnated brother. It is about the discarnation of a gentleman named Dimas. And Jerome, that instructor that we're seeing this book, he said that Dimas did not run out of time on Earth, meaning that his death had been anticipated. When this happened, we see Andrea Luis having a couple of troubled thoughts. When Andrea Luis hears this, he asks if Dimas had committed indirect suicide like he had. Um, because he knew that was his case. Because as we saw, Andre Luis drank, smoked, had not not well thought sexual relations. He was contaminated with syphilis, and he was always living that not focused and good life for his health. Then Jerome begins to explain that Dimas did not commit suicide indirectly, but that he did discarnated earlier because he had sacrificed himself a lot for others. So this is beautiful. And from the beginning of this chapter, this is the reason why Dimas is receiving this specific help with his discarnation process. He said that he spent many sleepless nights, and this is Drum speaking. He said that Dimas spent many sleepless nights helping others, and that he dealt so much with people's sadness that he ended up acquiring hypertrophic cirrhosis. When Andrelis understood the huge difference between him and Dimas, and that he had not in a good way anticipated his death, but that Dimas had done so much good to all brothers and sisters, and being a spiritist worker, Andrelis got a little embarrassed. So he understood that the reason why Dimas was receiving all that help was a very specific case of a worker that really deserved that. Jerome, when he saw that Andrelis was feeling embarrassed, he started to change the subject. Let's talk about something else. When they arrived at Dima's residence, and this is very interesting because we're talking about a book that was psychographed in the 40s. So it was very common in that time that people, when they died, they were being like taken care of that dead body in their own places. So when they had arrived at Dima's residence, they saw that there were already several entities there, and those were good entities. And Andrea Luis noticed that a spirit of great light showed great interest in Dimas and asked if that was scheduled for that day. This whole discarnation process was for that day. This is the question. This enlightened spirit consulted Jerome about the opportunity to gather there spirits who had been that Dimas had helped when he was living as a worker, a spiritist, and those spirits that wanted to visit him, they just want to show their gratitude and say their first goodbye in that very sad last day. So Jerome explained that Dimas could not receive it. This is very interesting because from the beginning, we need to have in our minds that Dimas did a great job as a man incarnated on earth. But Jerome explained that Dimas could not receive those visits because he was worried about the family that would stay on earth. And this was linking him to the lower vibrations of his wife and children. So we see how our mental attitude is really, really precious. Dima's wife did not leave his side, and she was emitting so much love, so much this love magnetism that she was holding him to his body because she was emitting many currents of force that ended up making his strength centers stronger. This is beautiful. Although we're seeing that this was not the appropriate occasion for this amount of love, but we see here this huge healing power that love has. Um, so they started to apply, and now I'm talking about Jerome and those workers that were helping him to discarnate. They started to apply some passes on him, on Dimas, and they helped a false improvement. So the family would think that he had gotten better. And they could and that wife that was praying a lot, she could go and rest a little bit, and in this main time they would do all the process. Then with Geronimo's performance, Dimas calmed down and even opened his eyes, saying, "Thank God I'm better and breathing better." Then the children were happier and calmer, and so was his wife. We have already seen in the messengers that the most common technique to help the sick person to improve a little is to apply those passes so this person will feel better, the family will think that that person is better, and then they will stop that emanating so many fluids and magnetism, and they will stop properly holding that person that needs to die because the time has arrived. They will cooperate more properly and in a more harmonic way. um, so with this improvement in Dimas, he said he asked his wife to go home and rest, the own Dimas. And he said, "At my request, dear, go rest. So, as we were seeing, one of Andrea Luis' teammates was Luciana, the nurse. And Luciana, from that time on, she was specifically told to take care of Dima's wife. So she wasn't supposed to let that lady away from her. So Dima's wife went and tried to get a little rest. The doctor also laughed because he saw Dimas improving. Then the spirits began the decisive operations for the discarnation process. But before they put their hands on Dimas, forehead for him to pray, on his forehead for him to pray, um, we see Dimas in this "I'm getting better" moment, saying a beautiful prayer in the book. This is very precious. Because of the time, we can't bring all the details, but we do ask everybody that's here with us to read the book because this is so much precious. So Dimas began to remember his own mother in childhood. He remembered Jesus and all that scene, those moments of suffer that Jesus went through, and he thought of Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus. This is beautiful, guys. And he asked her, Mary, to intercede for him. He says a beautiful prayer for Mary, and his heart fills with light. This is a beautiful moment. Suddenly, a beautiful and luminous entity appears in the room and she says, I am his mother. So this is so beautiful because we see here Dimas praying and to Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus, and then suddenly his own mother, the spirit that had been his mother on earth, appears in the room full of light because she was already a more elevated spirit. This is very beautiful, guys. It's much worth reading the entire chapter. And Dimas, on his mother's lap, he feels like a child. Then they begin the complete discarnation. Luciana goes to the other room to stay with Dimas' wife, so she would not wake up. Everything is very, very much orchestrated. This is beautiful, and we see in this chapter and in this book, in these two chapters, that receiving that amount of help is some beautiful, beautiful thing, and we're gonna see from here on why. There is a profound description in scientific. This is very interesting saying too. There is this huge scientific description in terms of how the disembodiment happens. Of course, we can bring every single detail here, but it's really nice, really interesting, so it's worth reading. Um, it happens that he starts to lose pulse, so the doctor is called, and the family members too. All that drama is back again. When Louis saw Dimas' spirit rebuilding itself part by part outside the body. And this is a very interesting thing because we see when this happens, we see that Dimas was a very illuminated spirit because it's not something very easy and very common to happen. So Dimas was already there, and his mother wraps him in a white robe. This is very beautiful too. But they were only going to cut the thread that connected the perispirit to the body the next day. And they were going to rest all the time. Everybody, and now I'm referring to Andrea Luis, Jerome, Luciana. Everybody would rest for a day, and they would come back the next day. But Geronimo warns that they needed to be very vigilant so that bad thoughts and enemies from other times wouldn't try to disturb Dima's peace. In this chapter, we will see what happens after his discarnation. Andrea Luis began to remember his own discarnation process, and that when he had died, he could not make observations. So, because we know what was happening when he died, so he really wanted to stay there to take advantage of all that time that case of Dimas, so he could learn more. So Andrea Luis, as we saw, they went back to the transitory house, Casa Transitoria. They went back there, but Andrea Luis came back to Dimas' house so he could learn more. He saw when Andrea Luis got back, he saw that there were many friendly entities there at Dimas' house. André Luiz met a friend named Fabriciano. This is a very Brazilian name, so it's better for us to say like this. He was very delighted in seeing that Dimas was getting better, and he really had Dimas as a great friend. He said this, Fabriciano said, that Dimas' passage through Earth was beautiful, and he knew that his friend had much merit. André Luiz realized that Dimas had many friendly entities in spirituality, like Fabriciano, and once again, André Luiz started asking why was that commission him, Luciana, Jerome needed, and why it had to be created since Dimas had all those spirits to help him. And then, this is really interesting. Fabriciano explained that Dimas had a lot of merit, and in his case, even those friends still didn't have what was needed for a passage without major imbalances. That's why specific support from superior spirits like Geronimo was needed. This was all about discarnating a very noble spirit. Fabriciano said that this specific help from a team prepared for this specific job was only for those who were very good and that had worked a lot in Jesus' field. And one thing that they commented a lot was that there was starting to have this disturbing noise of other spirits around its carnated body. Some family members crying, saying that they would never forget him, and they were starting to emanate bad thought fluids. um, Fabriciano explains that those mental images of the family members disturbed Dimas' mind. Um, Guys, before the end of this chapter, a number of spirits appear involving a crime scene. So we're seeing that this chapter is very busy, full of people. There was this crime of which Dimas was the only witness. Fabriciano told André Luiz to pay attention to those people who were making comments about this crime, because there was becoming to be to start this psychosphere full of dark thoughts, and it was not good. And some entities in a monstrous form and a very bad spirit appear and said, "It is the murderer." And he starts asking Dimas for forgiveness. So in this crime vibe that started occurring here, we see that bad spirits become to arrive there, and we see that the own criminal, the man that had committed that homicide, he was there. And this man, knowing that Dimas was the only witness, he was trying to ask Dimas for forgiveness. And then Andrea Luis realizes that Dimas' house, and this is very interesting, and not another amazing, precious lesson that the books brings us. Andrea Luis realizes that Dimas' house was not protected from those inferior entities because they did not pray at home. Although Dimas himself had much protection because he prayed, um, he wasn't having prayers with his family, so the house was not protected. They explain that veiling a body for a long time, and we know that this is very common. It's very common here in Brazil. I think it's very common there in US, and they explain that this type of tradition could be very harmful to the spirit because all of that mental garbage was beginning um, to specifically bug, and we're talking here about a very evolved spirit, Dimas. So what would happen to a normal person that did not have this amount of work with Jesus if this type of veiling tradition would occur? And like that lack of prayer at home, it leaves the place unprotected. Um, Brother Chris talks about the spiritual situation of the lesser spirits who were in the cemetery making some noise in his part. And this will be very interesting. But just so before Chris start, we have to take very serious this lesson of how this tradition that are dogmas when it comes to how we look to those that are dying or are about to be disembodied, how those traditions can be harmful to our places because those I don't want him or her to go type of feeling react on the mental attitude of that spirit that is living. This is very serious. We're seeing here a spirit that is evolved, and he himself is being harmed by that type of thing. Right now, I pass the word to our great friend Chris. So sorry, guys, I took so much time I didn't want.
Chapter Continue to Learn, chapter 15. Andrea described that 2 hours before the funeral, Dimas' home was becoming crowded with friends in the spirit friends. Geronimo arrived, headed for the room where Dimas was. Andrea described that Dimas' perispiritual body was more improved, more solid, and absorbed all vital principles left over from physiological field through the fluid core from the dead brain to his spirit brain. Geronimo asked Dima's mother for information. She answered happily, thanks to Big Jesus, he was improved. Geronimo cut the last thread, and they watched Dimas walking after a long time of sleep. When the final chain had been removed, he, the corpse almost immediately displayed signs of fast decomposition, loss of appearance, appearing lifeless. In contrast, Dimas' spirit was opening his eyes, looking around like a child, and could see the house full of people, and he wanted to know more about it. His mother explained to him that his life in his physical body has come to an end, and asking him, "Don't you recognize me, my son?" Dimas embraced her, crying out, calling, "Mother, my mother, is it possible?" She told to him to control his emotions because they are together now in the much happier life, and so he wouldn't worry about those he has left behind, that everything will be resolved at the right time. His mother introduced him to Geronimo, saying that he is the friend who let him free from his physical body, and the mother explained that he could not be with her at that at that moment because she works in a different sphere from his, but she would visit him as often as possible. His mother also explained that they were going to stay until the burial as pre-trip exercise, and invite him to look at his physical body inside the coffin so that he can thank the vehicle, everything this amazing tool could provide him on earth, with a gratitude and respect. Dimas was having difficulty correlating his thoughts. However, this mother warned him to not pay attention to the sad thoughts of the relatives and friends around him. Soon after, 20 spirits followed Dimas' physical body to the cemetery. This part is so interesting. Andrea described that he was unable to express the fear in his heart. The cemetery's iron grate fence was crowded by dense spirits screaming loudly, scoffing at the long line of Dimas' friends following the coffin and making jokes about it. However, when they saw the 20 spirits, they say, "It's no use, he's protected." Father Hipólito explained to Andrea that their task of escorting the demons to the cemetery also was to protect him. Usually, cemeteries attract great numbers of dense spirits who come to attack the dead bodies in order to extract the last vital fluids. In describing of meeting between Jesus and a demon-possessed man, the gospel refers to the disturbed spirits who still stay among the tombs. Inside the cemetery, just minutes before the burial, Geronimo bent over the corpse in the coffin using left-wise magnetic passes, extracting all the last vital fluids, spread them into the atmosphere so that dense spirit would not be able to take possession of this fluid. Soon after this operation was complete, Andrea described that they start listing distressing laments around which seem like a vast mark of souls. Andrea sees a woman sitting on the grave, crying a lot, and offers to help. The woman, completely disturbed, starts cursing and complaining, waiting to return to her son, her husband, and the address it that she is still connected to the physical body through the core that instead of being silver was very dark gray. At the moment, realized that the lack of experience on the four spiritual work that works in the cemetery help post uh, work in the cemetery help post arrive telling Andrea to not worry. Explain that that woman is completely imbalanced. She created this situation, lived around 30 years in the flesh, all away from spiritual, marry without moral order, and ignore pregnancy, keep the drinking, creation complications in the childbirth, which led to her disincarnation. Andrea asked the worker if it wouldn't be better to cut that dark wire that connects her to the physical body, and the worker explained that by high order they can't cut it because otherwise she would obsess over innocent son and her honest husband, disturbing their mental rehabilitation. The worker shows Andrea another case, an older man in the same situation, completely imbalanced, attached to the physical body by the same dark gray thread. And the worker explained that he wants only protect his money that he left, and if they could divide, he would obsess his family daily. Despite the appearance, they are helped and still have hope others in worse condition of hate instead of stay on the top, keep themselves in the darkness inside the ground, hidden below the earth's surface by the destructive mental state. If there is joy for all taste, there is also suffering for all needs. Geronimo calls André and his thank the work for the all explanations. Getting ready to leave, André asked Dimas how he was feeling after his his death, and Dimas explained that he still have a full pressure of the physical body that he just left. But when he comfort to, but when he comfort to the divine order, he feel immediately right and more comfortable, and they go back to the Fabio's transition house. The end of this chapter.
Wow, lots of food for thought. Let's get, I think we just do the summary of the other chapter because it has like a of consistency, and then we can go back and discuss. And so in 16, chapter 16 is like comparing um, the case studies between Dimas and Fabio. If Dimas was a good brother, but he did have some struggles Fabio was in another level, and it's going to be kind of on that sense. They do go a little bit more into detail into Dimas first, talking about how at times when he was taken, sometimes he would come and just he would be upset. He would remember his family, and so he would yell and help and all of that. And what Andre was asking here was, how is it that him being a spiritist, knowing that their life is eternal and everything, why was he having such trouble? And so Geronimo explains to him, Andre, each of us is an entire world. Enlightenment and consolation are gifts from God our Father, which is beautiful. And so like he, in let me see here. Okay, okay. He talks a little bit about balance, how we need to have um, balance between our home and our family and like spirituality. Okay, so like, yes, it's important to love our family, and they gave Dimas that credit, but should we be rooted to that extent that it was not like balanced? And something maybe we can talk about. So then they continue going, and now they move on to Fabio, and they describe Fabio's home a little bit different, saying here that it was a small, modest house. It was enclosed by greenery and flowers, and it was a different feeling. It was a humble residence, peace, silence, harmony. It just looked like a wonderful oasis in the middle of the vast desert. That's how the spirits begin to describe. And then let me see. I'm trying to look at our time. Fabio and Dad. Okay. So then the dad was gonna help him just with this whole process. And let me see. I took a lot of notes. Mind you, I was in school taking notes, dear friends. Okay, so let me now read my notes and let me explain this. So basically, the way that the spirits went in with Fabio was that the family was around, and Fabio had like this feeling, like this sensation that he was going to disincarnate or cross. And so what they did was, again using the magnetic um, passes, they kind of gave Fabio that little oomph, the that false improvement that we also saw with Dimas. And so, he requests that they were going to have like the last worship at home together. And what was interesting was that the wife helped him shower, but that water in the bath was actually to help her get the strength to then help, her husband. And so he freshens up and he's fresh. And so they start together as a family, um, and talking, and they read the New Testament, Paul of Tarsus, right? Corinthians, chapter 15, verse 44. And it says, it is sown a mortal body, it is raised a spiritual body. There is a mortal body and there is a spiritual body, right? So, what a powerful text, and to think the strain, knowing and having that feeling that you're like at the end of your life. Like, that's, I think, what Andre wanted us to see. Um, to Can we reach at that level? And then after they read the Bible, they did a beautiful prayer. It was so so beautiful. And um, Andre describes that when he, after they prayed, he asked the children, no, before he did that, he tells the wife Mercedes, I have a message for you. I need to turn off my. Give me 1 minute, friends. My Instagram is going there. Sorry. He says, okay, so Mercedes, I know that our love is beautiful. It is just, and I'm paraphrasing, but please, when I cross, please don't hold on to it. If you find new love, you take it, right? If there's comfort in companionship, you take that, because I know there's going to be difficulties and your family is not here and it's just you. So if you have that blessing, if you have that, take it, noticing now the difference, right, between Dimas, how brother Chris and João describing him, that was a little bit more tied up with his family. Here's Fabio telling, his wife, it's okay. He says, happily for us, we have cultivated an everlasting bond of the soul without allowing the monster of jealousy to keep watch over our castle of love. And so it was just this beautiful communion. He says, we live in a deep spiritual communion. The Lord has granted us enough spiritual light to tell the difference. Friends, we encourage you to read what he said to his wife, but those are just little pieces of what he says. What a what a powerful thing. And so of course she gets emotional, and as they're finishing, they ask the older son to pray, Carlindo. And so they'll do a beautiful prayer. Finally, Fabio says, I'm going to kiss my children. And it was so, so emotional. Um, it says here, the Christian father placed the snow white cloth on the children's heads and kissed the linen instead of the hair. Even so, the gesture carried such loving fervor that I noticed a ray of light coming from Fabio's mouth and piercing the children's mind. The kiss was saturated with sanctifying magnetism. These are like seconds literally before he's about to disincarnate. And he's not only speaking about this idea of it's okay, you know, be happy, we're connected spiritually, but he's also sending this beautiful love that can be seen through rays that not even our eyes can see. Must have been so beautiful. So finally, after all of this, he kind of just, he starts he's about to disincarnate, so his body starts to like, and let's call the doctor, and he's like, it's okay. So in the middle of all of that, then Andre tells us the disincarnation process, which like our brother João explained in the first one, is good to go back and read it to have a visual, but basically the way they describe it is they kind of start at the solar plexus, the heart and the brain, so in this area, and this is where they start to like separate, but with him it was different. With Dimas, this cord, it took longer to kind of cut it, like as our brother Jean said, right, the mom appeared and they had to spend overnight with him and just kind of wait for that process. With Fabio, it was on the spot. Literally, they cut the cord and he is completely free. And Andre describes that beautiful moment that he says, while we were traveling upward, right? He was just having that same impression that Fabio himself would almost go into heaven, and just this light would greet him because it was just so, so beautiful. And that's the end of chapter 16. It was really beautiful. And then now we can start to make some comments and share our thoughts.
Yes,
Yeah.
those chapters are really amazing. This chapter that you just read, it's it's
Yeah.
hard reading it without crying, because when we see a father with this amount of love, he thinks he can't kiss his children, but at the same time that amount of love transforms that virus into something beautiful, all of those rays of love and light. This is so beautiful, this is so beautiful. And as we've talked here before, this amazing, and we've been talking about all those processes of that we are as human beings able to heal ourselves through the power of our minds. This is beautiful because we see that love really can transform something that is material into something beautiful that can heal the body, that can heal the soul. This is so beautiful, so beautiful. And another interesting thing that this book brings us again is all those moral Christian values and moral Christian teachings that we see so strongly firm in the New Testament, and we're studying that. We're going through that on Saturdays. But we see Andrea Luis bringing those gospel teachings, that gospel speech, with this new form, this more technology, um, modern form. This is beautiful. This is very beautiful. Do you guys have something to say?
One more time, we can see that love is the high technology.
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
Yes, totally. This is beautiful.
Literally, higher
Yes,
technology.
literally.
yeah, yeah. And and it's not easy. I recently had my experience that I shared with you all about my dog, Lobella. Whew, oh, I still feel it, and to that's even though I can imagine, not that animals we are very connected, but of course when it's from the same species, right? Being a father or a mother, oof, I can't. Oh my gosh, no. And I learned so much as I was looking through this to put myself, in a scale just to see where I'm at, not to compare, put myself down. It's everybody's in a process, but I really thought to be like Fabio would be incredible because, I found myself sometimes too, like it's just very hard. But then if we turn that around, we can see if we really, really want to, we try, then it is possible. We can do it every day, little by little. There's no rush, but it's just that working on it. I think that right there is it's a huge, huge, huge step for some of us that might be a little bit more close to whatever it is that could be a person, and sometimes people too can hold on to memories or experiences like that, and so it's always good to learn from these beautiful brothers that shared their story, and Andre for putting that for us. And there was a comment that they told Dimas, which was hold on, give me 3 seconds. I was doing this and in a classroom, and the kids today there was something else. Let me tell you, friends. Give me 1 minute. Where is it? It said here, pray more. If you give me a couple. Oh, thank you for waiting. Let's see. There it is. Page 240, chapter 15. It says here, speak very little and pray a lot. That was the advice that they gave to Dimas. There it
Beautiful.
is. Yeah.
So much wise. Yeah.
Yes.
Very interesting. I have another couple of connections that I would like to make with what you guys said and the gospel. Um, Chris talked about the spiritual situation of those spirits that were not in this good vibration, to say the least, and that's those spirits that were in that cemetery, making noise and doing evil stuff to all everybody they could remember. And another of his um, it's interesting because when we see this type of thing that happens at a cemetery, we remember, and we talked about this last week in this study, what Christ brought us in Matthew chapter 8, verses 21 and 22, because we are in a situation where Jesus is talking with his disciples, and one of them says to him, Lord, allow me first to go and bury my father. But Jesus said to him, follow me and let the dead bury their dead. So this is very interesting. And when we read André Luis books, we see a very technical approach to this saying of Jesus, because we should not be worried about matter, all about those material stuff. Of course, we're not saying here that we would not love our beloved family and beloved friends, and that we would not be people that care about a person who died. We're not saying this, but we're saying that we should be very aware, very interested about the spirit, and the spirit will never die. Of course, it's hard to for a mother, for example, to see her kids being buried. Of course that's not easy, and of course a mother that goes to a cemetery visit her son or daughter, she's not doing anything wrong. What we're saying here is that this amount of consideration that people put into matter, into the material body, Jesus 2,000 years ago was telling us to not do that because that's not good. And when we see Jesus saying, let the dead bury their dead, we're seeing that Jesus is actually talking about their dead in terms of those spirits that were in this chapter in a lower vibration and that were 100% occupied with dead bodies. So why are we gonna put all our effort in the dead when there are already so much spirits that are doing this? This is a very impressive teaching that Jesus brings, and then we see Andrea Luis taking the veil as he told us from chapter 1 in this book. Another thing, when we look at Fabiano's house, we remember Jesus talking about the house built on the rock when he says, "Therefore, whoever hears these words of mine and does them is like a wise man who built his house on rock." Matthew chapter 7, verses 24-25. The rain fell, the rivers overflowed, the winds blew and hit that house, and it did not fall because it had its foundation in the rock. This is beautiful, and we see Dimas was a very noble man. He worked a lot, but his house was not being built on the rock because when it comes to being a family that is supposed to be praying and following the in this case not that men are the leaders of the families but in this case the leader because he was um, a better example of a Christian. This is very interesting because we see a very approachable and technical and real example of what Christ brought us 2,000 years ago. And we see in Fabiana's case that and that house was built on a huge rock, the rock that Christ brought us, that was love. We see that in that sad, that huge amount of sadness that he and his kids were going through, there was this beautiful love that could comfort them all. This is beautiful. This is what Jesus was telling us. This is beautiful. Do you guys wanna say something?
Yeah, you know, you were talking, João, and I was thinking the examples that Andre put forth to us are
Yes.
like very basic. They could be any of us here. They were not these like I for me when I was reading the cemetery part, I was like, whoa, like that was very new to me, and I was like, okay, I'm like, and I have been blessed with like imaginations. If you all might be too, right? When you're reading and you see the picture, and I started to see the picture in my head, and it was very scary. And to me, it was scary in a sense, like wow, you know, we don't even realize all of this is happening. So by Andre and Geronimo giving us two examples like Dimas and Fabio, it's a very everyday average family, and both families were they were Dimas was a spiritist as well, right? He was a spiritual man, but what was the difference? And it really was the activities, I think, that these families both created. Like Jean said, like
Yes.
Fabio's family was doing this on prayer, you know, having like a worship at home, because you know that one was the last one, and so that means that they had done before. So Dima's family was probably one that they were doing more. Perhaps I'm just inferencing, like in between the lines, right? Maybe they were doing superficial things, things that are like temporary, and so when you attach to that part of family when it's not there anymore, then of course you're gonna feel like everything is lost, and perhaps that was what Demas was doing. I'm just saying
No, I
those.
think this is a very good point for us to think because what you're saying is what is built on spirit will live forever, and what is built on matter will die when that matter comes to an end. This is very, very beautiful. And this approach, this very simple approach that Andrea Luis brings us, that we're mentioning, this is very beautiful because, as you said, it could be any one of us. We can see ourselves or our beloved ones in that kind of position. And it makes us think, what are we giving credit for? Where are we putting our attention? And are we building something that has this strong, powerful love behind. So, because we know the only thing that we know is that everybody here, when it comes to matter and material body, physical body, will will come to an end. So we know that that's for sure. So are we building something that can survive that, that can be very strong, and that can calm our hearts in those troubled times, because they will come. We're seeing our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, as we've talked before, they are going through this huge, painful situation. And we do want everybody that is there to have those amount of principles in their hearts that Jesus brought us, those speeches. And here we're not talking in this dogmatic way of Christianity, but love itself, right? Loving each one, and being able to, as we've seen in previous books, if you are in this situation where bombs are falling everywhere, can you have some peace of mind inside your place, or will you be extremely disturbed as well inside your place, even though any bomb has attacked you yet?
Mm.
Those considerations that Andrea Luis brings us really makes us think. This those books are very precious. Do you guys want to say something more?
Now I can understand better that pray is a shelter of love.
Yes, yes, this is very beautiful. Chris brings this short phrases, but so fulfilled with
Feeling
sentiment and wisdom. This is
okay.
beautiful. Dear, do you want to say something?
Sure. We can do the idea of prayer. But I was thinking of this quote. I don't, it's like super paraphrased, but it's an idea. You want to be, people don't remember like what you give them, they remember how you make them feel, right? And I think when João was talking, and even Chris, if you have moments of prayer, and I think earlier in this book, when they were taking Dimas and Fabio and them, and using volitation outside of the atmosphere, the stratosphere, and all of those, and they was the first time that they did it. They all got scared, and then they went back to that spirituality, whatever it was, different religions, to use that word, or spiritual beliefs, right? That those were, I guess, as founded by their parents or by someone close to them, right? Look at, to think what they used at that time when they were kind of scared. Those are the things to teach a prayer, teach a moment. So I know I'm not a parent, but I as a teacher, it's a different kind of parenting, I have to say. you know um and sometimes, it's not about the content. You want to teach them. Of course, I would love for all of them to become expert readers, but a lot of the things when they come back or that we talk about is the lessons that they take with them. They always talk about how they really felt, they feel comfortable because they know that in our classroom culture, because it's me with the children, right, we're like feeding off each other's energy. We open up that space to remind ourselves, we are special. We are here to, we use the word love. I always say we need to love the planet, love yourselves, love family, love the world. Be respectful, be kind. How can we do that with the planet? And these are like 12 or 13-year olds, so they still need to be taught like that, and they probably remember that more than, let's say, in a classroom when it's, free time, when the adult doesn't engage with them. There's no, even though in the moment they might think, oh, how fun that, in a particular place, without judgment, just an observation, but we got to do whatever we wanted. We were just on our phones, right? At one point, however, from my experience, those students become very disengaged. So they like that connection. So I'm just thinking, if I was a parent, making those connections with my children, so that when if something were to happen, we have those memories. And I feel like that's what Fabio did with his family, and that's where the strength that they had, that beautiful, beautiful relationship. So that was
This
my
is so beautiful. And a nice thing that we see in the book, I think it's worth mentioning, is that Fabiano's house was much more poor than Dimas. We see that they were in two very different kind of situations when it comes to the amount of money they had, and we see that Fabiano's family, they were rich in so many other ways. This is beautiful. I
yes.
think that dear, do you want to say something? I think that we have.
Actually, I did, because I used to do this at school. I'm gonna put myself out there. I used to, oh, just, when
The
you're
teacher.
first you start and you want to love, and I used to bribe my kids, my students. I would take them snacks all the time, and and I actually, when I started studying spiritism, my idea of my connections, not with adults and with the children, changed completely. And I asked them, guys, I am actually, I don't think I need to give you something physical for you to know that I care about you. And these are 13-year-olds. I kid you not. We don't need you to give us anything. It's just you. That's it. I was like, "Are you sure?" They're like, "Yes." And I love to ask the youth, because I mean, well, they're the future of, of us. Like, these are the ones we're planting the seeds. And it is incredible how I think these newer generations, they're a little bit less um, materialistic. They want connections with adults. They want that, and that I think that we can learn so much from these two stories, because what's happening on the outs on the other end, right, we can say, is all a result of the choices that Fabio did versus Dimas in that. So it is, I say, I was reading this, I was like, this is very nice. Very nice. I learned a lot. That was pretty much what I wanted to say.
Yeah,
So
so beautiful. Thank
yeah,
you, dear, so much, bro.
yeah.
Do you want to say something else before we finish?
No, just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, my friends, so much. I thank everybody that's here with us today, our great friends. We always thank everybody that are watching the studies later. I can see the comments that come before. I really appreciate it. And I know Chris and Nora, they do appreciate as well. We thank you guys so much. We're here next week to, or even we're gonna decide this. This is important thing to say. We have still a study before, a day of study before we finish this book. This book has 5 meetings, okay? But we're gonna talk and we're gonna come here at Kardec Radio to finish this amazing book. And next week we're gonna be here with this book or starting another one, having already finished this one. Okay. Thank you guys so much. See you guys next week. Okay. Bye bye.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.